Well, as my colleagues have pointed out, there's no question that crime has increased in America. Homicides, shootings, armed robbery, carjackings. In many of our cities, well, it's safer to walk down the streets of Mogadishu. Many of our cities have become some of the world's largest outdoor shooting ranges. I think it's appropriate to ask why. And until our public leaders in many of our communities give up their motto of see no evil, hear no evil, and prosecute no evil, we're not going to see an improvement. Final point, I think President Biden has tolerated a lot of this. An uncharitable person might say that his silence indicates that he's, at least the administration, is more interested in Super Bowl guacamole than the crime rate.
So Senator Kennedy here is out here fear-mongering about crime, and this is something that's really wild because he seems to blame Democrats for not taking crime seriously enough. But you know, let's really think about it for a minute. Even in cities with Democratic mayors, and in fact the President Joe Biden, they have all called for police spending increases. At the federal level, they're increasing funding for police departments, and even in highly Democratic cities like Minneapolis, for example, they are increasing police budgets. This is all at a time when crime is still about half of what it was in the mid-90s. So to be very clear, crime rates in the United States are incredibly low, and yet they are pretending as though there's some sort of organized retail theft to steal things from grocery stores. But like, think about it for a second. Yeah, theft has increased a little bit over the past 2 years during the pandemic because the government hasn't done anything to support people who are economically impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. So yeah, when people are hungry and they just don't have any money, they will end up stealing things a little bit more. That is the situation that we are in right now. And if we really wanted to, right now, we could greatly reduce crime rates just by making sure that people are taken care of in terms of food and housing. But it's important to remember that even the increase that we've seen in crime is a slight increase on top of already historic lows. So why are they increasing police spending and why are they focused on this? Well, first and foremost, there's a psychological aspect to it. They think that people are going to be more likely to vote for right-wingers if they're terrified for their lives. And so terrifying people living in the suburbs about the terrible, dangerous cities is something that they really just do for political posturing. But then there's another layer to it. You see, because the United States actually has a very long history of using police departments to suppress working class protests and to suppress strikes. And what we are seeing across the United States is a rapid increase of both working class protests and an increase in strikes and unionization. And so what it really seems like is that they are on the ready to increase police funding to respond to any demands that the government do anything slightly different. Just look at Minnesota for a perfect example. Following the death of George Floyd, they called in the National Guard, and the police departments were rolling around the streets with what were essentially tanks, firing tear gas all over the place and even shooting people with rubber bullets who were on their patio. Now, anytime the police department kills people in Minneapolis, which just happened fairly recently, the city and the state have responded by bringing in the National Guard just in case, and by rolling out tons of additional police officers just in case. But just in case what? Because the reality is, these protests are happening all over the country. They've been happening for 2 years now very consistently, and often getting very little coverage. But the reality is, the police response to these protests has escalated significantly. Protests that are, to be very clear, overwhelmingly peaceful protests. And the only time that there's any type of escalation and it turns into a riot is usually when the police initiate things by shooting tear gas into crowds. And much research has demonstrated very clearly that it is police officers that create riots more so than protests. Which goes back to the main point. As Joe Biden is refusing to do anything about climate change, as he's refusing to do anything substantial to alleviate poverty in the United States, as working class people are left to struggle and suffer while billionaires increase their wealth during this pandemic, Joe Biden, the Democrats, and the Republicans all want to make sure that we have plenty of police on hand to respond to any type of left-wing protest that might happen. That is the political reality. That Even the Democrats are opposed to these left-wing protests, and they will do whatever they can to suppress them, as they did in Minneapolis and many other cities. Because we're at the point now that any real solutions to the problems that we are facing as a country would require addressing the main problem that is capitalism.
Ben Carollo with Rebel Headquarters. You can catch my show Galaxy Brain on the Young Turks Twitch channel every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to stay up to date with my content, you can follow me at Benjamin Carollo on Twitter. And for those of you that might be wondering or have noticed, my pronouns are in fact she, her.